I was born the heiress to a fortune, the kind of girl who had everything. Then one morning, I woke up in the body of the poorest girl in our school. In the strange weeks that followed, I taught her how to navigate my world of privilege without being discovered, and she taught me how to survive a world that wanted to crush me. We both clung to the desperate hope that one day, we would switch back. But then, one day, she simply vanished. I heard the whispers from classmates. She had accepted an offer to study abroad, and her family, my family, had gone with her. The next time I saw her, years later, she had returned from her studies, having completely and utterly stolen my life. And the final twist of the knife? She was engaged to the boy next door, my childhood sweetheart. The first week in Chloe's body was a special kind of hell. I never got used to the lumpy, precarious bed that felt like it might collapse at any moment, or the suffocating atmosphere of a whole family crammed into one tiny apartment. Sleep deprivation had painted dark, bruised circles under my eyes, a stark contrast to the angry red constellation of acne that had colonized my forehead. I fought back tears, my heart aching for my real parents, and splashed my face with cold water from the tap. Grabbing a worn backpack, I made a move for the door. "Sweetheart, take the egg I boiled for you." Behind me, Chloe's mother wheeled herself out from the kitchen, her movements quick and urgent. She pressed the warm breakfast into my hand. "Chloe, honey, be careful on your way to school. Watch out for cars, and come home right after class, okay?" I shoved the egg into my bag, forcing a smile that felt brittle and foreign on my face. "Don't worry, Mom." A week in, and the words still felt like sandpaper in my throat. I had slipped up more than once, calling her ma'am, which had earned me worried looks and her gentle questions about whether I had hit my head. Once outside, I found a shared bicycle. Chloe's home was a good 10-minute ride from the nearest bus stop, a daily pilgrimage I was forced to make. I pedaled until my legs burned, my empty stomach churning. This body was so frail, so thin and short, that even riding a bike felt like a monumental effort. I wondered why she was so weak, then remembered the likely reason: a doctor's visit was a luxury they couldn't afford. By the time I squeezed onto the bus, I was a boneless heap of exhaustion, collapsing into a vacant seat. "Hey, Ethan, morning." I glanced at the boy in the seat next to me. I knew him. He was one of my many admirers from my old life, the one who used to bring me breakfast. This time, however, he just gave me a once-over, his brow furrowing in disgust before he turned to stare out the window. From behind me, a familiar, sneering voice cut through the morning chatter. "Ugh, she reeks of poverty. Chloe, if your family is that broke, why are you even in school? Shouldn't you just drop out and get a job?" I whipped my head around to glare at the girl, a classmate. Chloe's family was poor, yes, but not so poor they couldn't afford her education. She was unfazed by my glare. "How dare you look at me like that? Don't think you're special just because you've been sucking up to Ava lately. She's a princess. You're, at best, her little servant." A ripple of cruel laughter spread through the nearby seats. I clenched my fists, my knuckles white, memorizing each of their smug faces. The moment I got my body back, they would be the first to pay. And then I'd have my father fund Chloe's entire education, just to see the looks on their faces. After a long period of adjustment, I slowly grew accustomed to Chloe's life and her body. Chloe herself was a huge help, constantly reassuring me in the quiet moments we stole to talk. "Don't worry, Ava," she'd say, her voice a soothing balm. "We'll definitely switch back. Just be patient for a little while longer." Her words became my mantra. She was right. As long as we didn't give up, this nightmare would end. The more I got to know her, the more I genuinely believed she was a wonderful person. She was quiet and withdrawn, with few friends in our class. I'd often see her, a small, solitary figure, walking along the edge of the road, trying to make herself invisible. The girls in our class mocked her, and the boys ignored her. Compared to her, I had been a radiant pearl, surrounded by a constant chorus of flattery and admiration. Yet this seemingly insignificant girl possessed a heart of pure gold. In just 1 week, we had become the closest of friends, sharing everything. I sprinted into the classroom, collapsing into my seat just as the bell rang, every ounce of my energy spent. My deskmate, Leo, was already there, slumped over his desk in a state of semi-consciousness. He cracked open one eye to acknowledge my arrival before shutting it again. Technically, someone of Chloe's short stature should have been seated at the front, but the teacher had relegated her to the very back row. Crestwood Academy was the best private school in the city, with a tuition of $60,000 a semester. Most students were rich kids polishing their resumes for college. Leo, however, had gotten in on a connection and, like Chloe, came from a lower-income family. The two of them were a study in contrasts. He spent his classes sleeping while she buried her head in her books. A silent truce existed between them, neither ever spoke to the other. But I wasn't built for silence. I couldn't stand not interacting with people. I nudged Leo's arm, breaking the unspoken rule. Leo, I have 2 eggs. You can have one. And take the milk, I don't like plain milk. I pulled the breakfast from my bag and pushed it toward him. Back in my own life, I'd never touched boiled eggs or plain milk. My daily breakfast was freshly baked bread and squeezed juice. For Chloe's family, eggs and milk were a luxury. Her mother would save for her, never touching them herself. It was a shame all that nutrition seemed wasted on Chloe's perpetually frail frame. But no matter. Once we switched back, I'd have my father solve all their financial problems. Leo looked up, studying me with a strange expression. Chloe, he mumbled, his voice gravelly with sleep. You're giving me your breakfast. You don't have a crush on me, do you? I blinked, then rolled my eyes. It was true that Leo's looks could rival even the school's golden boy, Ethan. They were 2 different kinds of handsome. Ethan was clean-cut and charmingly bright, while Leo had a rebellious glint in his eyes that dared you to challenge him. That face had probably saved him from a lot of trouble. He was handsome, yes, but his lazy posture and swagger made him seem like a complete jerk. As if I could ever like him. You can relax, I said, peeling my own egg. I'm more into the Ethan type. You're not my style. I forced myself to take a bite. I needed the energy. I just don't like it, so I'm giving it to you. Don't overthink it. We're deskmates. You have to help me get rid of the evidence. I knew a little about Leo. He was a left-behind child, raised by an elderly grandmother who lived on a meager government subsidy. School tuition was already a massive strain on their finances. I'd never seen him eat breakfast, and I'd often caught him rubbing his stomach during class, a clear sign of long-term hunger issues. He couldn't go on like that. Leo hesitated, then shot a disdainful look at the egg. Fine, I'll help you out. What a waste. He snatched it, peeled it in 3 swift motions, and swallowed it in one bite. I quickly poked a straw into the milk carton and handed it to him. It's a deal, then. From now on, you help me finish half my breakfast. It'll make my mom happy. With that settled, I scanned the front of the classroom. It was strange. Class was about to start, but Chloe wasn't here. Our driver was always punctual. Could she be sick? I ducked my head and secretly dialed my own phone number. It rang and rang, but no one answered. I heard Leo cough softly beside me, a subtle warning. The teacher was walking to the podium. Panicked, I shut off the phone and shoved it back into my pocket. The teacher droned on about assignments, but my mind was elsewhere. I spent the morning staring blankly at my textbook. Last night, Chloe had told me she'd figured out a way we might be able to switch back. I had been buzzing with anticipation all night. And now, she was gone. The second the break bell rang, I rushed to my best friend, Penelope. Penny, why isn't Ava here today? Is she sick? Penelope looked up from her phone, her expression bored. Ava dropped out. Dropped out? My heart seized. What are you talking about? Just yesterday she told me she had a secret to share. Why would she drop out? I stared at her, certain she must have heard wrong. Why on earth would my parents let me drop out? Penelope let out a short, mocking laugh, looking at me like I was an idiot. Her family submitted the withdrawal papers last week. I even had a farewell dinner with her last night. By now, they're probably on a plane to another country. The world went silent. The clamor of the hallway faded into a dull roar in my ears. When I found my voice, it came out as a desperate, ragged shout. How could she? How could she lie to me? Penelope looked at me strangely. Don't be naive. She never really considered you a friend. Her mocking laughter followed me as my legs gave out. The world tilted, and the last thing I saw before the darkness consumed me was the tiled floor of the classroom rushing up to meet me. Through the closing tunnel of my vision, I thought I saw Leo leap from his seat and run toward me. Chloe, you're finally awake. I woke up on a cot, staring at a white ceiling and a row of identical beds. I was in the school infirmary. The school nurse was leaning over me, adjusting her glasses. You need to eat more nutritious food, my dear. Your body is too weak, and all your levels are low. That's why you fainted. I struggled to sit up, my head throbbing, my mind a confused jumble. It took a long moment for Penelope's words to come crashing back. Chloe was gone. She had taken my body, my life, and was going to live as me. And I might never find her again. The thought was a physical blow. A wave of panic and frustration washed over me. I wanted to scream, to tell someone, anyone, that I was Ava. But who would ever believe me? I swung my legs off the cot, determined to leave, but a dizzy spell sent me reeling. You should rest here a while longer, the nurse said, gently pushing me back down. Don't worry, I've already informed your teacher. But I couldn't rest. Tears welled in my eyes. I had to call my parents. I had to explain. I couldn't lose them. Ignoring the nurse's protests, I pulled on my shoes and stormed out of the infirmary. This time, she didn't try to stop me. Back in the classroom, I grabbed my phone and ran outside, desperately dialing my parents' numbers. Each call went straight to an automated message: the number you have dialed is not available. I ran for the school gates. The security guard stopped me. It's class time. Where do you think you're going? My mom is waiting for me outside, I lied, my voice trembling. I'm sick. He must have seen the desperate, unwell look on my face, because he waved me through without another question. I hailed the first taxi I saw and gave the driver the address to my home. My home. A sprawling villa in the city's most exclusive district, a world away from the school. I urged the driver to go faster, my heart pounding in my chest. When we finally arrived, I realized with a jolt that I didn't have a single cent on me. The driver's face soured, but seeing I was just a student in distress, he let me go with a gruff sigh. I sprinted to the gates. They were locked tight. The curtains were drawn, a heavy, impenetrable veil. Not a single sliver of light escaped from within. Refusing to give up, I scrambled over the fence into the backyard. A chilling silence greeted me. My family's pets were gone. Normally, our golden retriever, Sunshine, and our cat, Mittens, would be dozing in their spots by the patio. In that moment, I knew. Penelope was telling the truth. They were really gone. I sank onto the lone swing set in the yard, the world crashing down around me. I remembered my parents asking me a long time ago, Ava, darling, would you ever want to study abroad? We could go with you. I had shaken my head, telling them I loved it here, that I didn't want to leave my friends. I couldn't imagine what expression my parents wore when Chloe, as me, suddenly announced she wanted to go. What lies did she spin to convince them? I was certain of one thing: she had planned this all along. My parents had been deceived. She had betrayed me. And I, like a fool, had worried about her, trusted her, even told her all my secrets. Now I was trapped, abandoned in this broken shell. Who could I turn to? My grandparents had passed away years ago, and my maternal grandparents lived in a distant northern city. I had no other family here. I buried my head between my knees, a knot of anxiety tightening in my gut. I had to contact someone, anyone. I couldn't let Chloe steal my life. Then, a flicker of hope. No relatives, maybe, but I had a neighbor I'd known for over a decade. Ethan. We had been inseparable as children, in the same class since kindergarten. No one knew me better than him. Our parents had even joked about us getting married one day. I shot to my feet and ran to his house next door. As I reached his gate, their housekeeper, Mrs. Liu, was outside hanging up laundry. She looked at me, a stranger, with a puzzled expression. "Can I help you, young lady?" Tears streamed down my face. "Mrs. Liu," I choked out, "I need to see Ethan." Then the stupidity of my actions hit me. It was a school day. Of course Ethan wouldn't be home. Mrs. Liu looked concerned, but she paused her work. "Oh, dear. Ethan and his family have gone abroad. I'm just here to finish cleaning up. And then I'll be locking up for good and heading back to my hometown. You shouldn't come back here, you'll only be wasting your time." She continued to chatter, but I didn't hear a word. I was frozen, an icy dread spreading through my veins. "Are you all right, dear? You look terribly pale." I don't remember leaving his house. I wandered aimlessly down the street for what felt like hours. Finally, with the last 3% of my phone's battery, I dialed Ethan's number, clinging to one final, desperate shred of hope. To my shock, he answered. "Hello? Who is this?" It was Ethan's voice. I squatted on the curb, helplessness wrapping around me like strangling vines, eroding my will to fight. When the switch first happened, I thought it was just a cosmic glitch, a temporary swap. I never worried that Chloe would steal my life. In the beginning, I wanted to run to my parents in Chloe's body and tell them the truth. But Chloe had stopped me. She'd said they would just think it was a prank. She'd asked me, with wide, innocent eyes, if I didn't want a chance to escape my gilded cage for a while, to experience the simple life. She'd said it was like something out of a movie, a secret we had to keep while we figured out how to switch back. I had naively believed her. And while I waited, she had been studying me, learning my habits, my childhood memories, mimicking my every move and expression. So now, I was Chloe. The poor, unhealthy, acne-ridden, insecure girl everyone laughed at. I walked for what felt like an eternity, my feet screaming in protest inside ill-fitting shoes. My heels were rubbed raw and bleeding. This body was so incredibly weak. Still, I didn't stop. I couldn't go back to Chloe's house. I couldn't face the strangers I was supposed to call Mom and Dad. It was late afternoon when I finally stumbled back to school, just in time for the evening self-study session. My clothes were soaked with sweat, and the dried tear tracks on my face stung my skin. Leo looked up as I slumped into my seat. His brow was furrowed with worry. "Where have you been? The nurse said you left. I looked all over the school for you." I took a long drink of water from my bottle. "I went home," I said, my voice lifeless. "You still look awful. Why don't you take the night off? I can walk you home." In the last couple of days, Leo and I had talked more, and a fragile bond had formed. The genuine concern in his eyes made him look almost serious. I pulled my books from my desk, my voice a hoarse whisper. "No, it's fine. I just want to be alone for a bit." My mind was a chaotic storm of thoughts I couldn't begin to sort through. Leo looked like he wanted to argue, but he simply turned away, giving me the space I needed. The next morning, the cries of street vendors woke me before dawn. When I got out of bed, the small apartment was already empty. The tricycle they used for their pancake stall was gone. Chloe's parents started their day at 3 in the morning, preparing batter and fillings, ready to catch the early morning rush at a nearby intersection. I washed my face, put on a tracksuit, and went into the small courtyard to exercise. This body was a wreck, I had to get it moving, to sweat out the weakness. After just 10 minutes, I was drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. It was clear that rebuilding this body would be a long, slow process. After a quick shower, the sun was up. I found hot buns and milk her mother had left for me, packed them in a bag, and headed out. On the entryway table, I saw a note. "Chloe, here's your allowance for the week. Make sure you eat well at school. You're too thin." Chloe was their only child. Despite their poverty, they doted on her, sacrificing their own needs to make sure she never went hungry. Every weekend, they would cook a feast of her Favorite dishes. In her own way, she was luckier than many people. I rarely had meals with my own parents, their lives revolved around work and investments. I was raised by nannies. When I got to class, the first thing I did was slide the breakfast over to Leo. He had gone from being embarrassed to accepting it with a comfortable ease. After taking a large bite of a meat bun, he looked at me seriously. You know, besides my grandma, no one's ever been this nice to me. I appreciate it. If you ever need anything, I'll go through hell and high water for you. I don't need that, I said flatly. After breakfast, I began reviewing yesterday's lessons, drilling the information into my brain until it was second nature. Habits, once formed, are hard to break, even in a different body. Chloe always said she envied my life, how I had everything without trying. She saw a pretty, popular, talented girl with a closet full of beautiful clothes and a private driver, a real life princess. But she never saw the relentless pressure behind the glittering facade. My parents had sky-high expectations. My childhood had no weekends, it was a blur of tutoring sessions. While other kids were at the mall, I was in a dance studio stretching my limbs or at a math Olympiad prep class. In the evenings, my parents would grill me on my progress. I had to read for half an hour every night before I was allowed to sleep. They believed in polishing a diamond through relentless friction. One careless mistake on a test could earn me a week-long lecture. Chloe thought she had stepped into a life of leisure. She was wrong. My parents' tests never stopped. Her real ordeal was just beginning. Leo seemed to be growing more and more intrigued by me. He was always trying to start a conversation. Chloe, you seem different lately. You're a lot more confident. And I've never seen you zone out in class anymore. What, are you trying to get into Sterling University or something? I shot him a look and went back to writing out my vocabulary words. Midterms were approaching. Crestwood Academy, being the city's top school, had a generous scholarship program for low-income students. If you placed in the top 3 of your class, you received a full tuition waiver for the semester, plus a grant of $10,000 to $30,000. For me, right now, that money was everything. Chloe's grades were mediocre, yet she'd insisted on coming to this ridiculously expensive school. A teacher her father knew had pulled some strings to get her in, but the tuition was a crushing burden on her parents. They wouldn't be able to afford it for much longer. I wasn't Chloe. I couldn't stand by and watch her parents work themselves to the bone for my sake. Everyone, take out your homework. I'm going to check it, one by one. The math teacher had materialized at the back of the classroom. His cold gaze swept over the students, landing on me. Chloe, get your homework ready. We'll start with you. I had been up until midnight finishing the mountain of math problems. Chloe's mom had stayed up with me. I rummaged through my backpack. Nothing. I frantically searched my desk. Still nothing. Seeing my panic, Leo raised an eyebrow. Chloe, don't tell me you forgot your homework. I froze, my face pale. I think I did. In this teacher's class, not doing your homework was a cardinal sin. His punishment was legendary. You had to stand at the front of the class, holding a heavy wooden chair above your head for 10 minutes. It was a humiliating spectacle designed to ensure no one ever defied him again. Boys and girls alike usually ended up in tears. I had made a mistake in his class once, in my old life, but my stellar grades had earned me a pass. But I wasn't Ava anymore. I was Chloe. I couldn't imagine what holding a chair that heavy would do to this fragile body. My arms would shake uncontrollably. Seeing my distress, Leo casually slid his homework from his desk onto mine. Like I said, bro, he said with a smirk, I don't eat for free. Then, without another word, he grabbed his chair and swaggered to the front of the classroom. The teacher's face contorted with rage. Leo, get out. Stand in the hallway. Having a parasite like you in this school is a disgrace to your parents. Leo was an orphan. The words were a deliberate, cruel jab. I watched him go, his back straight, not a hint of hesitation in his stride. I looked down at the paper in my hands. The answers were written. in a neat, confident script, but they made no sense. Every single multiple-choice question was marked A. My nascent gratitude evaporated. The teacher snatched the paper from my hands, his face turning a shade of purple. Chloe, you get out too. Outside in the hallway, Leo winked at me. Don't worry. And whatever you do, don't cry. If you get tired, just put the chair down and sit on it. I'll keep watch for old man Matherson. I did as he said, leaning my head back against the cool wall and looking at him. Leo was the kind of student who seemed like a slacker, but he wasn't a bad person. In fact, he was incredibly smart, a natural learner. It was a waste of talent. He was the type who needed a challenge, a dare. Leo, I said. We can't go on like this. Let's make a bet. The mock exams are in 2 weeks. Whoever gets a better score is the boss from now on. The loser has to be the other's personal errand runner. He shot me an amused look. You, Chloe? Do you have any idea what happens when I actually try? I could blow past half the class without breaking a sweat. I just don't care about grades. But if I decide to get serious, I'm afraid you'll lose. Badly. A smile played on my lips. Good. Then let's see. No backing out. And so we made a pact. The loser would have to honor the terms, no complaints. Thanks to my new association with Leo, the other students weren't as hostile anymore. In fact, they started using me as a messenger. Chloe, can you tell Leo the first want to see a movie with him next week? Chloe, give this lunchbox to Leo. Make sure you tell him it's from me. I dutifully accepted everything on his behalf. But he would always sneer and toss the gifts aside. Stop trying to be a people pleaser, he'd grumble at me. Don't accept all this junk. It's annoying. Life settled into a quiet routine. Whenever the ache for my parents became unbearable, I would take the bus back to my old neighborhood and just look at the house. As winter approached, a layer of weeds began to choke the backyard. Slowly, painfully, I began to let go of the hope of ever finding them. Through relentless effort, I whipped Chloe's body into shape. Now, I could run a kilometer without gasping for air. My grades steadily climbed with each practice exam. On the final mock exam, I gave it my all and secured first place in the class, earning a cash prize from our homeroom teacher. Leo finally felt the pressure. He started paying attention in class, studying with me, and even spending hours in the library researching topics. One day, as I walked into class, he stared at me for a long moment. You know, Chloe, he said suddenly, you remind me of someone. The way you look at people, the way you walk, the way you talk, everything except your face. My heart skipped a beat. Who? His eyes glinted with a familiar, mischievous light. Ava. Leo, are you looking for a fight? The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. I grabbed the nearest book and hurled it at him. I'm Chloe. Stop talking nonsense. He yelped, tumbling out of his chair and landing on the floor with a thud. Geez, Chloe. What's with the massive overreaction? I took a deep breath, composing myself. I looked him straight in the eye. Actually, I am Ava. Chloe and I switched bodies. For once, his lazy, devil-may-care attitude vanished. He got up, brushed himself off, and ruffled my hair, a soft chuckle escaping his lips. Nice try, shorty. You really had me going for a second. Body switching? I think you've been studying too hard. I sighed. See? No one would ever believe me. Leo's good looks attracted most of the girls in the school, but his arrogant personality rubbed many of the guys the wrong way. They were friendly to his face, but always looked for ways to undermine him behind his back. The irony was, they decided to use me to get to him. You're making Chloe run 5 laps around the track? That's insane. Connor, are you even a man? Leo's voice was laced with fury as he confronted the gym class monitor. Connor, the monitor, just gave Leo a cold look. She was late. Shouldn't she be punished? Last time, Stephen was late and he had to run 5 laps. Just because she's a girl, she gets special treatment? The argument on the track escalated, and several girls spoke up for me. Chloe's on her period, it's a special circumstance. Are you going to be responsible if something happens to her? Yeah, she fainted in class not that long ago. But Connor was unmoved. If you feel so bad for her, you can run her laps for her, he sneered. The girls fell silent. 5 laps was 2.5 kilometers. Under the blazing sun, it was a grueling task. Seeing them back down, Connor shot a triumphant, challenging look at Leo. This was never about me, it was about provoking Leo. Leo's face was a thundercloud, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. In a flash, he lunged at Connor. Leo, don't. I sprinted, throwing my arms around his waist and pulling him back with all my might. He struggled for a moment, then seemed to go limp. Chloe, let go of me. No. Not until you calm down. I squeezed tighter, my arms aching from the strain. The heat was oppressive. Finally, I felt the tension. Leave his body. I relaxed my grip, and he immediately broke free, bolting away with the speed of someone running for their life. Connor glared at me. If you're too scared to fight, just say so. Hiding behind a girl. What a coward. The other students looked on with disapproval as the drama fizzled out. The bell rang, and people started heading back to class. Leo didn't return until the lesson had already started. When he sat down, he looked at me with an uncharacteristically serious expression. Chloe, you're a girl. You shouldn't just go around grabbing guys like that, you know? I didn't look up from my book. He sighed. Look, today was my fault. Connor was just trying to get to me, and you got caught in the middle. It was my job to stick up for you. Don't worry, if it happens again, I'll protect you. I nodded faintly. It didn't matter. Even if he tried something again, I wasn't afraid. After months of training, my body was no longer weak. Today was just a special circumstance. The combination of exercise and proper nutrition had done wonders. My complexion had cleared up, my face had filled out. I had finally pinned back the long bangs that had once hidden her small face. Looking in the mirror, I thought she looked quite pretty. No one could call me ugly anymore. Chloe's parents had noticed the changes, too. They didn't say much, but their eyes followed me with a new light. When I was happy, they were happy, and their brighter moods seemed to bring in more business at their pancake stall. My weekly allowance had even increased by 100 yuan. Holding the extra cash, a new kind of hope bloomed in my chest. Chloe, I thought, you had parents who loved you this much, and you threw them away. I hope you don't live to regret it. The school held its annual sports festival. The grand prize was a ticket to a popular tourist destination. Leo and I spent every afternoon after school training on the track, running until we were completely spent. Chloe, you really blow my mind, he said one day, panting beside me. I remember you used to be out of breath just walking into class. Now you can keep up with me for this long. I just smiled. A person's potential is limitless, some just never tap into it. Let's do our best, Leo. Buoyed by a sudden surge of confidence, I did something I hadn't dared to do for a long time. I led him to the school's music room. It was filled with instruments. Of all kinds, some brand new, others gathering dust. I walked to a grand piano and lifted the cloth cover, my fingers finding the familiar black and white keys. Chloe, you play the piano? Leo asked, his voice full of surprise. I sat down. Want to hear a piece from a true musical genius? He found a stool and sat down, a skeptical eyebrow raised. All right. I'll be your audience for today. I gently touched the keys, a flood of melodies coming back to me, clear and vibrant. There was no piano in Chloe's house. In my old life, no matter how heavy my workload, I had a strict schedule of practicing every piece I knew for 3 days a week. I wondered if the Chloe in my body had ever touched a piano, if that was a flaw in her performance that my parents might have noticed. I straightened my back, my posture perfect, and my fingers danced across the keyboard. My mind drifted back to all the school celebrations where I had performed a solo, basking in the spotlight. When the last note faded, I let my hands fall from the keys, a wave of sadness washing over me. Leo was suddenly right in front of me, his face a mask of disbelief and something else, something complex and searching. You're not really Ava, are you? Why are you so sure? We were on the bus home, slouched in our seats. Leo was staring at me, his eyes like twin galaxies. Because I've never seen someone change so much, so fast. The confidence that radiates from you. It's exactly like Ava's. The old Chloe was different. She was quiet, she never stepped out of her comfort zone. You've been one surprise after another. He watched me, a sly grin spreading across his face. I knew it. I was right. Only Ava could shine this brightly. And just like that, Leo became the sole keeper of my secret. When he learned how Chloe had deceived not just me, but my parents as well, he was more furious than I was. I knew it. She always had this creepy, gloomy look in her eyes. I knew she was no good. But don't worry. You're so amazing, you'll succeed. No matter what body you're in. And your parents will come back one day. When they do, I'll be the first one to help you expose her. I looked at him, his righteous anger so fierce it was almost comical, and I laughed. Wait, no, he backpedaled, if you switch back, all your future accomplishments will belong to her. That's not fair. Chloe, maybe you should stop trying so hard. Or, be secretly brilliant but pretend to be average. I shook my head. It doesn't matter. I don't want to think about that. All I know is, this life, the one I'm living right now, this is what I want. At the sports festival, I won first place in the women's 500-meter and the 2,000-meter races. Many of the other girls gave up on the last lap of the long-distance race, walking to the finish line. Only I kept going, teeth gritted, until the very end. The girls gathered around me, their faces a mixture of awe and disbelief. Chloe, when did you become such a beast? My guts were twisting into knots out there, but you, tiny as you are, you finished the whole thing. You totally deserve first place. Across the field, I caught Leo's eye. He was beaming, his face full of pride. A few weeks later, I graduated at the top of my entire grade, earning a full scholarship and a tuition waiver. My adoptive parents held me and wept, their eyes filled with a mixture of pride and a uniquely Chinese word for a kind of aching love. Everyone had seen the change in Chloe. No one laughed at me or whispered behind my back anymore. That summer, I worked a part-time job and studied the curriculum for the next semester. Any free time I had was spent in the library. When the new school year started, my transformation stunned everyone. I had grown taller, my skin was fairer, and I carried myself with an unshakable confidence. Ever since Leo knew the truth, he had become my steadfast study partner. He stopped skipping class and set his sights on the same goal as me. Sterling University. The dream of countless students. 3 years later, my acceptance letter from Sterling arrived. So did Leo's. The two worst performing students from the entering class had both gotten into a top university. It was the ultimate comeback story. The school awarded us a $100,000 scholarship and sent a delegation, complete with gongs and drums, to visit our home. My adoptive parents, dressed in their finest clothes, stood proudly beside me as we welcomed the school officials. The family now rented a small storefront for their business. My parents posed for a group photo with the school leadership, and the framed picture was hung prominently in their breakfast shop. Customers would come in and say, "Old Song's daughter is so promising. She's brought honor to the family. You two are going to have a comfortable old age." Relatives we hadn't seen in years came to offer their congratulations, stuffing large red envelopes into my hands and praising my parents for raising such a fine daughter. I was the center of attention, showered with praise. My parents' faces glowed with joy, tears of happiness streaming down their faces. "Old Song," my aunt said, "how did Chloe become so accomplished? I remember when she was little, she was so timid she would barely speak. Turns out she was just quietly preparing for big things." "Brother," my other aunt added, "she's blossomed. She looks nothing like she did as a child." So tall and fair now. How did you two manage it? Chloe, my uncle chimed in, don't you forget about your Uncle John. I used to carry you around all the time when you were a baby. I smiled politely at each of them. The truth was, I had never met any of these people before becoming Chloe. My parents, worried I was getting tired, gently intervened. Come, everyone, eat and drink. We must get together more often. The celebration lasted late into the night. On the way home, my parents walked on either side of me, each holding one of my hands. In that moment, happiness was a tangible thing. In that moment, I wasn't Ava. I was Chloe. University life was much more relaxed. I finally had time to cultivate some hobbies. I'd go out with friends, go hiking, or spend evenings in small pubs, talking and laughing without a care in the world. As for Leo, he leveraged his good looks to earn his first pot of gold. He started as a model for an ad agency, and soon, a director spotted his potential and offered him a role. By our sophomore year, Leo had a breakout role as the handsome, rebellious second male lead in a popular teen drama. By the time I graduated, he was one of a top star in the entertainment industry. Hey, he said to me one day, I promised I'd help you find your parents. I'm ready to make good on that promise now. Do you want to go? He had been saying this since he earned his first paycheck. All these years, he was more determined to find them than I was. And so, we went to America. But once there, I realized I had no way of contacting my parents. We spent a week sightseeing and then flew back. I realized I already had everything I needed. After graduation, I landed a job at a prestigious multinational corporation. A week later, a new CEO was appointed, a wunderkind reportedly poached from Wall Street. The company threw a lavish welcome banquet for the mysterious new boss. And now, the MC announced, let us welcome Mr. Ethan Croft and his lovely fiancée, Miss Ava Sterling. Every head in the room turned toward the grand, spiraling staircase. I stood frozen, watching the couple descend into the ballroom, arm in arm. Ethan was more mature and refined than he had been 6 years ago, still dazzlingly handsome. And Ava, Chloe, was dressed in a pure white gown, a diamond tiara sparkling in her hair. Her soft, rounded figure was proof that she had lived a life of ease. The only thing that seemed off was her posture. It was still hesitant, and her eyes darted around the room with a familiar timidity. Is that really the CEO's fiancée? My colleague, Hannah, whispered in my ear. She looks so plain. Maybe she has social anxiety? But shouldn't she be used to these kinds of events by now? She sighed with disappointment. I watched Chloe from across the room. Some things, it seemed, never changed. To liven up the somewhat stiff atmosphere, the company had hired a host and arranged a small game. Everyone had drawn a numbered card upon entry, and when your number was called, you had to perform a talent to win a mystery prize. I was quietly telling Leo, who had come as my +1, that I had seen Chloe when my number was called. Next, will the person with number 9 please come to the stage? I raised my hand. The event manager smiled at me. Ah, it's our very own Chloe Song. Let's see what talent she has in store for us. I gracefully rose from my seat, my evening gown rustling. Across the room, I saw both Ethan and Chloe turn to look at me. Chloe, especially, looked terrified. But when her eyes landed on my face, she visibly relaxed. I was wearing a white dress, my hair flowing down my back, my skin fair, my gaze steady. I looked nothing like the dark, skinny, acne-faced girl I had once been. She must have assumed I was just someone with the same name. But I wasn't going to let this opportunity pass. I walked confidently to the stage, took the microphone, and fixed my gaze on Ethan. I heard, Mr. Croft, that you have a favorite piece of music, Fallen Snow. Tonight, I'll play it for you. Ethan froze. The wine glass in his hand tilted, spilling red liquid down his front. No one else seemed to notice, all eyes were on me. The room fell silent. I sat at the piano, my fingers hovering over the keys. When we were children, Ethan and I were sent to the same piano teacher. This piece was notoriously difficult. I wish this song would just disappear, Ethan used to complain. But after countless hours of practice, we had both mastered it. I wondered if the Chloe in my body had ever played it again. My thoughts cleared, and as I reached the middle of the piece, I deliberately played a wrong note. Across the room, I saw a flicker of utter disbelief cross Ethan's face. That one wrong note, our shared, secret mistake from childhood, had struck a chord deep within him. When I finished, the room erupted in polite applause. Ethan, forgetting his composure, stared at me, his eyes wide. Chloe, seeing his expression, looked horrified. I gave them a small, knowing smile and walked back to my table. Chloe. You play the piano? I thought you said your family sold buns for a living. Hannah exclaimed, her eyes shining with admiration. But you should be careful. While you were playing, the CEO couldn't take his eyes off you. And his fiancé did not look happy. You don't want to get on her bad side. I heard they're childhood sweethearts, and her family is incredibly wealthy. I turned to my colleague. Really? I've never heard of this Miss Ava Sterling before. Hannah leaned in, her voice low and gossipy. The story is, after she went to America, the academic pressure was too much for her, and she developed severe depression. Her family is so rich they just let her drop out of school. Now she just spends her days shopping and living a life of leisure. I glanced at Chloe. So that was her excuse. Depression. A brilliant way to escape my parents' rigorous expectations. As we were talking, Ethan appeared at our table, a wine glass in hand, his expression a turmoil of emotions. Are you Chloe Song from Crestwood Academy? It was amazing he even remembered me. I met his gaze. That's right. Long time no see, Ethan. Chloe. I can't believe it's really you. You've changed so much. You look like a completely different person. You're Chloe? A sharp female voice cut in. It was her. She grabbed my wrist, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. Hannah looked between us, intrigued. Chloe, you know the CEO? I smiled sweetly. We were classmates. Miss Sterling and I were once the best of friends. She even knows all my secrets. Isn't that right, Ava? Are you surprised to see me? Chloe stared at me, speechless. But everyone was looking at her, waiting for an answer. She panicked, tugging at her dress and shrinking behind Ethan. Honey, my head is starting to hurt again. Can you take me somewhere to rest? Ethan frowned at her behavior. Before he left, he paused, his voice gentle. Ava and I are getting married soon. Since we're old classmates, you have to come to the wedding. I smiled, my gaze fixed on the cowering, unsteady figure of Chloe. Of course. I wouldn't miss my best friend's wedding for the world. The day after the banquet, Chloe made a grand entrance at the office. She had been instated as a senior partner, complete with the largest office in the building. Immediately, my job became a living nightmare. It was obvious to everyone that she was targeting me. Every project proposal I submitted was rejected. No matter how many revisions I made, nothing was ever good enough. Within 2 weeks, I had lost all my clients and was the worst performing employee in the company. Chloe, for her part, seemed to be surviving on a cocktail of sedatives, presumably to keep herself from completely losing control. One day, we ran into each other in the restroom. I was calmly reapplying my lipstick in the mirror. She stood beside me, her face a dark mask of hatred. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? She hissed. You're trying to torment me. You already had a life of luxury. Why can't you just leave me alone? I laughed. Chloe, you disappeared without a word, stole my body, and my parents. Don't you think you owe me an explanation? She clapped her hands over her ears, her voice rising to a shrill shriek. I don't owe you anything. Do you have any idea the pressure I've been under all these years? I earned this. This is what I deserve. I shook my head. Chloe, you are truly beyond saving. In contrast to Chloe's open hostility, Ethan was surprisingly gentle. He would coincidentally run into me after work, offer me rides home, take me to concerts, even send me flowers. I accepted it all without comment, often making sure we were seen together at company events. Rumors began to fly that I was trying to break up their engagement. I didn't care. Are you sure you're not still hung up on Ethan? Leo asked, having flown in from a film set to see me. I gave him a sly smile. What are you thinking? The only reason I'm doing this is to get under Chloe's skin. He looked at me disapprovingly. There are a million ways to do that. Why this way? Ethan is engaged, but he's still stringing you along. He's not a good guy. I winked. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Whenever I was with Ethan, he would subtly probe, trying to confirm if I was really me. I played along, dropping hints, never denying it. I knew he was in agony, torn between hoping I was Ava and fearing that I was. I didn't blame him for not believing me after that one phone call years ago. The story was unbelievable. But I couldn't believe that after all those years of living with Chloe in my body, he hadn't noticed the change. He must have suspected. But he never called. After a month of this, Chloe couldn't take it anymore. She stopped coming to the office. The wedding date was set. Before she left, she came to my desk for one last confrontation. No matter what tricks you pull, she said, her voice dripping with venom, Ethan will be my husband. You will never take back what is mine. Then congratulations, I said, my face a blank mask. I hope you get everything you wish for. With her gone, my performance at work soared back to the top. On the day of Ethan and Chloe's wedding, I didn't go. But I did receive a phone call. Chloe, why didn't you come today? It was Ethan. His voice was trembling. I sat in a quiet cafe, sipping my coffee. Congratulations, Mr. Croft. Happy wedding day. I paused. Or should I say, happy wedding day. Ebun. It was a silly nickname I'd given him when we were kids, because he used to be chubby like a little bun. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. I need to see you. I'm coming to find you now. Send me your address. I hung up and sent him my location. 10 minutes later, Leo walked into the cafe, dressed to the nines in a sharp suit. He sat down, looked at me in my strapless evening gown, and then around the empty cafe. What's going on? Don't tell me you're dragging me to Ethan's wedding. I'm not going. That's just bad luck. I rolled my eyes. Mr. Superstar, can you act? I slid a small, velvet ring box across the table. You'll know what to do. He stared at the box, his expression shifting from confusion to outrage. What do you take me for? I've never proposed to anyone in my life. This is my first time, and you want me to act? No way. If we're doing this, we're doing it for real. I smiled, a genuine, secret smile. The idiot. How could he not have realized? I leaned across the table. Leo. You had a crush on me in high school, didn't you? Not Chloe. Ava. His eyes widened. If you didn't, I continued, you never would have seen through the charade. No one else did. Only you. And now? I think it's time we took the next step. I'm willing. Are you? Leo stared at me for a few seconds, then a look of pure, unadulterated joy erupted on his face. Ava. You have absolutely no sense of romance. You should have told me. I would have planned something huge, invited all the media to witness this. He grabbed my hands, his own trembling with excitement. It was at that exact moment that Ethan walked in. Ava, he breathed, his eyes wide with shock. It really is you. I looked at him over Leo's shoulder. As you can see. The one and only. Leo, seeing Ethan, immediately went on the defensive. Ethan, shouldn't you be getting married to that psycho? What are you doing here? But Ethan's eyes were fixed on me, his gaze dropping to the diamond ring on my finger. Behind him, Chloe stumbled in, a vision in white lace. She grabbed Ethan's arm, her voice pleading. Honey, the wedding is still going on. Please, come back with me. It was the first time Leo had seen her since she'd returned. A look of pure disgust crossed his face. Chloe. We were desk mates, remember? How's the life of a rich heiress treating you? Does stealing someone else's life let you sleep at night? Chloe went pale, mumbling, "What are you talking about? I am Ava." Ethan yanked his arm away, shoving her so hard she fell to the floor. He turned to leave. But Chloe scrambled back up, her face dark and twisted. "Ava, do you know how long I've waited for this day? Every important person in this city is at that hotel to celebrate with me. And now, my fiancé has abandoned me at the altar. You've made me a laughingstock." Her voice cracked. "For years, I've prayed for you to die. Why won't God listen to my prayers?" She was weeping now, a wild, unhinged look in her eyes. Quietly, I noticed that Ethan had not left. He was standing by the door, watching her. "Do you know what I gave up to take your body?" she shrieked. "I sacrificed my health, my own lifespan. All of that was transferred to you. So I earned this. I don't owe you a thing." Her tirade finished, she snatched a steak knife from a nearby table. "Maybe if you were dead, none of this would matter. I could finally have your life forever." Leo instantly moved in front of me, kicking the knife from her hand. But she was relentless, scrambling to get it back, until Ethan finally stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. "Let's go," he said, his voice devoid of all emotion. "Let's go finish our wedding." The wedding did happen, after a fashion. The story that circulated through the company was that Ethan Croft didn't love his wife. On his wedding day, he had run out to profess his love to another woman, and had only been dragged back to the altar by his weeping bride. The ceremony itself was a chaotic mess, the groom stone-faced, the bride's smile strained and brittle. Everyone guessed that Ethan had been rejected and had married Chloe on the rebound. A reliable source even revealed that the newlyweds were living in separate houses. The office gossip soon turned to the more exciting news of a celebrity proposal. All eyes turned to me. "Some people have all the luck," Hannah sighed. "I thought Ethan had a thing for you, but it turns out you're engaged to a huge star." I smiled, holding up my hand to flash the diamond ring on my finger. "You're all invited to the wedding. I'd love for you to be there." A collective groan went through the office. I smiled. I might never get my old body back. But I had secretly reconnected with my real parents. And I had a future with Leo, who loved me for who I truly was. My life was complete.